Well, hello, everybody. This is Gail from the Empowering Process, or I should say podcast. And I have with me Jeni Holla. I love Jeni. We haven't spoken for a while, and we've both gone through quite a few changes, which is happening quickly anyway. And Jen and I are going to hold a conversation around not having control actually gives you control. And actually, some of the experiences she went through in order to get there. Welcome, Jen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You know, a few months ago when I was really in a tough space, I can say that now looking back, I was in a tough space, but also was kind of like, I'm not in a tough space. I got all my stuff together because I'm an entrepreneur and nobody can know I'm struggling, especially I'm a spiritual entrepreneur. And I remember one of my colleagues' friends had reached out and she was putting together a campaign about owning your power. And she asked me to record a short video of what it means to own your power. And I was stressing out about it. And I mean, literally, it had to be like a 5-10 second video, but I was stressing out about it. And I was like, what do I even say? Like, I feel like I'm all over the place right now. And she had reached back out and she knew a bit about what I was going through, just like a very top layer. And she said, what if your video has something to do with I'm in power when I accept that I'm not in power. Like I have power when I accept that I'm powerless.
That's the ultimate letting go.
I was like, that is so deep. That is so deep. And I said it and she hasn't posted it yet, like live. So it'll be interesting to see from months ago who that version of me was that said that
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and what it means now and how it's different. Because sometimes you can say things like, because I mean, that's a mind in a way. Can I cuss on this?
Oh, what the fuck are you
Okay.
talking about?
Yeah. Cause I'm like, it's a mind fuck being like, like, I own my power when I accept that I'm powerless. What? It's almost like backwards of what we're taught.
Well, the whole backwards and the upside down thing has been my jam, if you will, since about 2020. Since
Mm,
before the C word. So started that year, January. I started really not only questioning reality, but saying things like, well, what if it was upside down? What if it was
mm.
backwards? Well, and I started finding truths that I never realized were even there. Right. And so the fact that you're saying there's power in letting go is what coaches don't understand when they tell people to just let go. Because you can't just let go, can you, Jeni?
Not all the time. It's funny. I find I live in the gray area a lot. I live in the nuance because it can be that easy to let go. Like it can be that easy, which is why sometimes coaches, speakers, etc., will say these things. Let go because it is that easy. And at the same time, there's nuance and there's layers. And it's like, who are you talking to? And what level in the journey are they on with personal development, with spiritual growth, with healing? What do they believe? What is their foundation? There's so many nuances
Right.
to all of these things, and that I can only speak from my frame. Sometimes when these things are said, like let go or whatever it is, like I'm going to say one years ago in my beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, it was told that in order to grow your business, you have to work nights, weekends, lunch breaks. And I took that seriously. And the thing is it wasn't necessarily nights, weekends, lunch breaks. It was the idea that like you need to show up for your dream in
Right.
the time you're not working. Like not literally, like I cut all my friends, I cut my life, I cut it all because I was like, I'm gonna make this happen, and I like cut everything because I need to work nights, weekends. So the thing is like there's certain things that are said that some of us take literally or take out of
Right.
context. Well, how do I let go? It's almost like if you're in resistance to letting go, that is the lesson.
So what again, one of the chapters in my book is about me resisting resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So we're so complex and yet we're not, but we are. Um, because we make it that way. When I talk about letting go, I talk about resistance. Resistance is feeding the fire, right? And when in a particular moment last year when I was resisting what I was going through. And my intelligent mind knew I had to let go. And so I don't want to resist. So I was resisting the resistance. Right? How ridiculous is that? Right. And then I broke down and laughed, right?
Yeah.
Right. Here's why this isn't working, Gail.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. This reminds me of the summer. I went to go visit my aunt, and she's been on the spiritual journey for a while. This may not be the way she would describe herself, but this is my interpretation of just kind of hearing some of her stories. Is that she grew up in like the Hay House era.
Oh yeah.
I'm forgetting her name right now, but the woman who started Hay House.
It'll come to us.
Yeah, so
Not
you know,
important.
like she grew up in that era where the things were coming up, and she was very spiritual, but like had to be very quiet about it and kind of do it behind the scenes. And she had practiced Reiki and learned Reiki, but it was like, oh, what's that weird stuff? And now Reiki's a little more mainstream, and things are talked about a little bit differently now. So she's been on the journey for a very long time playing with this stuff, right? And we're talking about me, I do Akashic Records primarily. And so I'm talking to her about things. And so I'm just like open, like, I don't know, you know. So she tells me something. She said, I feel like, or something like, you know, like just you have to practice allowing. She told me to allow, like allow.
Permission.
And I was like, fuck allowing. I'm trying to allow. It's fucking hard. What do you mean allow? And it's funny because that's my part of my process is like anytime I get mad about what's being told to me, it shows me that there's like room to unwind and unpack whatever that is, but not in a way that keeps me stuck in that process, but more of just like, huh, interesting. Like what's here? Like
Right.
let go. What do you mean let go? I'm trying to let go. I drop the shit all the time. Wait a minute. If you're tense in your response to something, maybe perhaps if you like release the grip, and I'm gonna give another example with this, is I played softball growing up. So softball, baseball, any of them. In order to hit the ball well, part of it, you have to have a loose grip on the bat. If you go into the box and you're like, oh, I want to crush this ball, I want to show that I'm a badass, I'm going to hit a grand slam, I'm going to get a hit, yeah, you know, and you grip the bat hard and you swing, you might miss it, you might pop up, you might strike out, you know, versus when you're just relaxed and you take a breath and you have a looser grip, because it's almost like the harder you grip and the harder you try, the less likely it's going to happen. And
Right.
if you the grip and you have a nice smooth grip on the bat and just breathe and you're focused on, you know, the other things like the timing of the pitcher and the other things that help you to hone in on the ball coming in quickly.
Right. And then you kind of relax into it. One of my favorite exercises that I actually haven't done for a while, but it's from Abraham Hicks.
Mm-hmm.
With Esther was, you know, overwhelmed one time and she was having lunch at a restaurant with her husband. And Abraham told her to take a placemat, draw a line down the middle, and put on the left-hand side the things you absolutely can get done today. You know, without a doubt, you can achieve 1, 2, 3, 5 things, whatever, you absolutely can. On the right-hand side, everything else that won't get done. On the top, you say, things I can do today. On the right-hand side, you say, let God handle this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And when I do that, I don't write a list, but when I let go and let God, what I once thought was so important actually dissolves.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not, we make things so complex. They're not as important as our third dimensional ego brain thinks is important. And so, so one of the things that I wrote down today was, I have so many things. I talked to you about, you know, releasing the divide, but communication and community is coming up a lot for me these days, of the importance of it, and the importance of transparency, vulnerability, and seeing people for our commonality and not our differences, right? So over the past year, you mentioned that you had a tough ride of it. If you're willing to share, that would be awesome. And let's see what lessons came out of that for you.
Let's see. This will be my first time sharing. I think I'm on the other side of the hump. It's almost like the buildup, the turmoil, let me actually explain it a little differently. I just heard something. There's someone I started following recently, Master Co. He does pranic healing, and I follow some of his YouTube lives and his Twin Hearts meditations that he leads. And one of the lessons at the beginning, he was talking about something like if you look at life like a wheel, sometimes we're at the top of the wheel, but when you're turning in a car, when you're driving, the wheel, it goes all the way around. So when you get down at the bottom of the wheel, things might be really tough, but it's almost like eventually you got to come back to the top. Like you don't stay anywhere for one long amount of time. And when we're in it, it feels like it's never going to stop. Although we know and believe and trust from nature that when a storm comes, there's going to be sunshine. There's going to be a break in the clouds.
And the air is going to be clear and clean.
Those things, oh, I just had something drop in that I didn't even think about. Last year, I was in Florida. I was in Sarasota, and Florida experienced back-to-back hurricanes, tropical storms, etc. And each one brought something different for different parts of the area, of different destruction and different flooding and different storm surge and different things. So people in the area were impacted in very different ways. The third one, the last one that came, Helene, we literally were in the eye of the storm. And I had no idea, because hurricanes in Florida, when you live in Florida, you're like, hurricane, and you take it seriously, especially if you live on the coast and you do different things to prepare. But for the most part, you're like, it's going to go where it goes. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just kind of is what it is. And there's a bit of nonchalantness in a way with hurricanes. I think that's going to change after what happened this year, but still, like, there's a bit of a like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. No, it's not, And so I kind of was paying attention to like what was happening. And then I looked at my phone and I was like, oh my God, we're right on the track of this hurricane, and we're literally about to be in the eye of the storm. Like, we're about to be in the eye of the storm. And we were in a house with a bunch of people, and they were like, oh, what? So we all went outside for the eye of the storm. And it was wild because it was like crazy ripping wind. And then it was like nothing for about an hour because it was a massive eye.
Right.
Nothing. We were sitting outside, and then like it started coming again. And the winds on the backside were way more intense than the front. And then it was like, and then you wake up in the morning, it's like as if nothing happened, although of course there was plenty of destruction that had happened, but it's like it was just another day.
Right.
It was just another day.
Yeah.
And when I think about my life in this past year, a lot of my challenges have been financial. And I'm going to say this with love, and this is my perspective, and I'm sharing this perspective for multiple reasons. When it comes to natural disasters and hurricanes, there are so many different experiences and perspectives. And sometimes it's challenging for those who had a positive experience or a different perspective to share, because there was so much destruction and they feel insensitive sharing. The hurricane prior, I might be missing, I think it was Milton was the last one. And then Helene was before it, because Helene is the one that went to Asheville. So yeah, Milton was the last one that I was talking about. And then Helene was the one before, and Helene caused storm surge on the coast.
Right.
Inland, it wasn't as big of an impact because the storm was offshore, but it created a lot of flooding and damage along the coast. And I remember someone else in the spiritual community, I held a circle, and she had shared in circle, like, man, like it was a really beautiful experience for me. I was outside and I was connecting to the wind and the elements, and it was one of the most spiritual, powerful experiences. And she's like, I almost don't want to share it because there were so many people who were impacted and lost so many things.
Right.
I'm sharing all these pieces as I build this story because that's what I feel like. I feel like it's important for us to share our experience, even if it is different than others, because when it comes to tough things, I'm going to insert one more piece. After Milton, there is a company that's based out of Florida called Capacity Path, and they do really great work to support areas with mental health related support post hurricane natural disasters. And they've been doing it for a while. And they've gone offsite to different areas. And because of this being a local impact, they had a contract from the state to be able to provide these services, which includes like respite care and like licensed mental health counselors, life coaches, and different people, social workers and different people in the mental health space to be able to do crisis stabilization in a community, to be able to provide that mental health stabilization. Because yes, there's still like the FEMA and the funds and the foods and the sites and the water. There's still all of those things that come out. But like, who's supporting mental health?
Right. Who's supporting the people?
Yes.
Right.
So that company does that. So I joined as a 1099 and filled in when I could as a life coach support. And that was my first time ever doing anything like that. And the woman, Ami, who owns the company, she did training in the mornings because it was a full day. Like you had to commit to being there at like 8 in the morning and you didn't get off until 6. So it was a full day out in the community and there'd be training in the morning. And the thing that impacted me the most of her training was how she said, like, you can walk into these experiences where people have had mass devastation and you can walk in skipping and being happy. Not as like a ha-ha, but what you're doing, that is crisis stabilization because you're showing normality. You're showing and giving like the energy into the situation that you can be normal in this and you can also acknowledge what happened and you can move forward.
Right. Right.
So I share all this because all of these pieces, when it comes to financial instability, which is what I've really experienced over the past year, that was very new to me. And I've had to go through a lot of the shame and the uncertainty and being like, okay, I'm a spiritual coach. I do this work and yet I'm going through these tough things and trying to hide it. And I turned 40 last year. So, you know, being 40 and being like, oh, you know, like all these things that I had to face, but like was afraid to share it. And it was so hard. It was so hard to show up and be so in service of what I was doing, where it's like when I was giving Akashic readings in groups, the financial thing wasn't even there. Like it was like the channel was open, it was coming through, and it was really beautiful. But then when I got back to my human self, it was anxiety, overthinking, overwhelmed, like all the things, and trying to hold it all together while acting like it was all okay. And it's interesting.
And it wasn't. And it wasn't.
It wasn't. And it's interesting how similar that was to the experience of the hurricanes and everything coming through and being a part of that and being in the eye and doing the crisis stabilization. Because while some of the work was in heavily devastated areas, that was a different work and a different process, or maybe some of the work would be at a FEMA site to support. And some of the work we did go to local hangout spots because it was also making sure our mental health was good to continue to support. So one of the days on the weekend, we had like a lighter job where we went to a local food hall and an really cool outdoor space in Tampa and offered crisis stabilization in that community. And that venue brings tourists, it brings typically middle class and upper class America. And it did bring people who were impacted by the storm, but it also brought a lot of people who lived in the burbs and maybe just had minimal wind damage on their properties. And it's interesting because a lot of them, when you check in and kind of, you know, see there's different techniques to do it without being weird, but like checking and seeing how they're doing, many of them would just be like, I'm fine, I could have had it worse. And it's like,
and feeling guilty about their fine.
Yes. And it's like, well, but you went through the anxiety of wondering if your house was going to be pummeled. You went through friends and family who lost stuff. You went through, so while your physical property maybe did not sustain the damage that those on the coast did, like you still were impacted. And you and I both know with energy, you're still feeling the impact from the community.
Right.
And that does bring anxiety. And you're like, no, I'm fine. Okay, true. And like, how are you really? Like, like what's really there? Right. And sometimes I think we try to hold it all together to put off whatever. And I
Well,
want to say too, none of it's wrong because it's still part of the process. Maybe holding it all together is exactly what you need until that all crumbles and it's time to face it in a different way.
yes, I think crumbling is part of our process, but so my experience also being in the spiritual community, if you will, it is the phrase of how can I, who shows up so together, admit that there is a problem, right? And so what I've been holding back on, so again, finance is a problem, right? And my holding back, and I'll be quite honest with this, is I was in a community for a year, every day meeting in this community where I heard over and over and over again, money problems, money problems, money problems, to the point where it was like a wave hitting me, hitting me, hitting me. And I left. It's like, I can't be in this energy anymore. Your energy is killing me. Right. And so I feel like I'm in a purging process now of that energy. And so sometimes, especially empaths, take on other people's energy without even realizing it, and it impacts your life. Mm-hmm. Right. And so let's get back to your story. I think it's just beautiful. Go.
Yeah, where would you, I'm gonna ask you, where would you like me to go? Because there's a lot of different entry points. I kind of stayed more
what does the
general with
universe say is a perfect place to go at this point?
You know what I want to say right now is that if you are having financial challenges or financial instability, especially if you're in the spiritual space or you're an entrepreneur, I do want to say something that you're not alone. I'm coming to find out that there are a lot of people who are really challenged with different financial issues right now for different reasons. And now that I'm further along in the process, and it's almost like every fear that I had about money and what it meant to me and my identity, I faced along the way, right, and had the anxiety and I've had it all. So I can give an example. One of the beliefs that I had that I adopted really young, and I'm so grateful that I had training from my parents about credit cards and carrying debt, where they said, you pay it off in full, you don't carry it,
right.
It's now going to cost you $20 because of interest or $200. Like, do you really need that? Like, I learned those principles. And so I had like made this declaration, in my teens and 20s, like, I will never be a person who carries debt. I will never be a person who fill in the blank of everything.
Oops.
So as those things presented, where it was like, because I went from, putting different business expenses on 0% interest cards and being like, oh, I'm gonna make this money. I'm amazing. I have all these skills to offer and I have all these things. I'm gonna make the money. And then, like, the 12 months ran out. I'm like, now what?
Yes.
And so
and the 18 to 23% interest hits.
I never thought in a million years that I would be a person who would have those. And someone perhaps could listen to this and make judgments of this, that, and the third. And what I'm going to say based on my experience is that I am grateful that I've gone through all of these different things, because it's allowed me to neutralize many of these lack beliefs and many of these beliefs around money. Because, like, in the end of it kind of really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, but like, oh, the anxiety and the tenseness and all of the shame and all the things that I've held around all those things. I mean, this has literally been a process that's been unfolding over the past 3 years, but got really intense this past year. And so I said that because as I'm talking to other people who are facing different financial challenges, it's interesting because there's a space in there. And I can relate because I was in this space and sometimes go in it, but energetically, I can feel the difference for me now is like, I don't have money. I need money. And then the frantic energy to figure out how to get money, how to get clients, how to get the job. And so there's just a lot of get energy in that space. And it's coming from the tenseness of, oh my God, I have to pay the rent.
That causes resistance.
And in that space, because I have friends who are talking about different financial things because we've kind of been parallel with this. And it's like, I don't know if it doesn't, and I've done these things too, so I'm not judging. But like if I don't do it by this date or I need this amount, I need this amount. And for me, I really experience a lot of like it's not enough. So when I would have money come in, it'd be like, yeah, but it's not enough. My debt is this, then that's not enough. Like this $100 is gonna pay off my debt.
Right.
And so,
And
but
and,
then
and I sit there and go,
oh,
thank you very much.
yeah, it's like a whole different, it's
Right.
almost like I had to be broken down. Okay, another story with this. So last year, last year was my first 3 experiences with plant medicine,
Oh, there we
psychedelic
go.
plant medicine.
Yep. Yep. That'll take you.
The first one was psilocybin, and that was a beautiful journey. And then the second one was Bufo on a retreat, and that was a beautiful journey. And then the third one was psilocybin again, and that was a fucked up journey. I won't say it was a bad trip. I was just intense for me. It was like I was holding on to the couch, like I didn't want to let go. And I was like, oh my God. And in that experience, I felt like all of my reality was being ripped apart. Sound was being ripped apart. Like all these things were being ripped apart. And it's like literally what has physically been happening as I've like gained this awareness, like where it's almost like everything has been completely ripped apart. Anything I ever thought I knew, I didn't
It's
know.
now being proven wrong.
All of it ripped apart. And what I mean by that is even just like for me, certain beliefs about money and how to make it and where to make it and what I need to do and my value and my worth and where does it come from. And I mean, I'm very grateful that out of college, I money wise, I had a really great journey throughout, right? Like I was in a good household where I never felt any financial impact of whatever my parents maybe went through as young parents because they had me when they were 20. I'm sure they had different financial things, but I never felt any of that. And then going into college, I had a full ride to college. So I didn't pay anything for college. So I didn't take on college debt like a lot of other people have for different reasons. And then coming out of college, I had a sales career and that paid more and more and more. So I bought my first house in my 20s. My car was always paid for. My gas was always paid for. So I made 6 figures before 30. And so I had a really, great little experience. And so when I stepped in the entrepreneur world, I thought there should be no reason why I can't make 6 figures because I am a badass. I know what I'm doing. I have a lot to offer, which all of those things are true. But where I have struggled in the entrepreneur space, I believe when I look back, a lot of it has been about control and expecting or wanting a certain outcome or wanting it to look a certain way by a certain timeline or needing it to unfold in the way I want it to unfold. Or controlling the way that I want to be viewed or how I want to be seen.
One of the comments I made recently in a podcast is about my finally understanding karma. So from the Kabbalah perspective, karma is justice, right? And we are part of our makeup is justice. That's where judgment comes through, not judgmental, it's discernment. And karma is immediate, but karma is not a transactional exchange. And that's where, as the human, third dimensional human, I know I got messed up. Well, if I love you, you should love me back. Well, I can love you, and I don't care if you love me back because I'm going to get it over here. And so by letting go and no longer expecting that exchange, I'm not blocking it from coming because I'm not looking for it. I just trust and give myself permission to receive it. Right. And that's the lessons, so for me, the money issue is because of medical debt. Right. And which I was not prepared for. And so my approach is not to go and get it. It's just, I need to get in front of it. And so getting in front of it is still like just allowing what's going to unfold, and things are coming to me. Because from a human design, I'm also a projector, which means I can't ask, like Jeni, I can't ask you to collaborate with me, but I want to collaborate. I have to wait for you to ask me. Then we're in great shape, right? And so I'm getting collaborations, I'm getting clients, I'm getting these opportunities because I'm like, all right, I have to shut up and just sit here and wait. I'll just do my thing. And, oh, someone just dinged and they want to, okay. But it's permission to let go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so the franticness of the financial, um, it's one of the, I think it's a dirty, dark secret. Like,
Can be.
like you can't let people know.
Yeah. Because it makes you look bad, or it makes you look like you don't have your shit together, or, insert whatever story. I got them all. I mean, I could sit here for an hour and tell you all the stories that I got,
Right.
as I'm
Right.
sure that are similar to many other stories, and on and on and on. And
Right.
energetically, for me, I hit a point where I'm like, I'm sick of this. Like, I'm sick of this frantic energy. I'm sick of this, like spinning out mentally. I'm sick of thinking of all the things. I'm sick of feeling this way. And I'm like, this energy, like, I'm noticing it more now where I'm like, God, I was gonna have a problem. And I'm like, oh, this feels horrible. Oh, that's right. I get to choose. Okay. Well, cancel, delete, stop. And the thing is like hearing that, like if you're somebody listening to this and you're like in it, hearing that, you might be like, fuck you. There is no cancel, stop, delete. Like I can't cancel, stop, delete because I'm in it. Because I know
Right.
what that felt like. I was in those spirals, and I would sit and meditate and I'd be like, fuck you. And like I knew what to do. But like when you're in it, it's God, I went in deep, like mentally. Oh my God, I think that I experienced a lot of this, especially being a spiritual coach, that I could really understand the depth that this shit can take you. Cause I went there. Like I went so many places and it was so hard, so hard. Cause my husband would be like, why don't you just, and he's very helpful and he's very spiritual and he
He's a
holds people
sweetheart.
really
Yes.
well. Like he's great, but he'd be like, doesn't matter. It's in the future. Like stay here. And I'd be like, blah, 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 blah. And I was just so sucked in.
Mhm.
And when you said we feel energy of others, always true. And, and part of my journey moving forward is this awareness of feeling others' energy, because being in Florida with the hurricanes and all of the anxiety,
Mhm.
I'm coming to realize that a lot of the anxiety that I had, absolutely, I don't believe in being like, oh, that's not my energy and I'm feeling it. I don't believe in that, because we always are going to feel something that we understand and we can relate to.
And we're all
But
connected. We're
it
connected.
was my anxiety was amplified because I also was feeling the anxiety, uncertainty of incoming hurricanes, wrecked houses. What are my next steps? How am I going to pay for things? Like all of those things that were happening collectively.
Mhm.
On top of it, like if I had to put a percentage, let's say mine was on a 10. Mine was on a 10 already. But like if you take on a scale of 1 to 100, maybe mine was like 40% of what I was feeling. And then because of everything else, that shit was 100%. So it amplified it. And I took it
Right.
all as my own.
Right.
Because when I left October 31st, because that was the end of our lease, because we've been traveling as nomads for the past 3 years. And so our 6 month stay in Sarasota ended on the 31st. And I was trying so hard to stay in Florida because I love Florida, but that just didn't happen. So I needed Texas was the next step. That's a whole nother story. But I had to leave and I was trying to stay and I did not want to stay. And it was so hard to leave. But like when I got here to Dallas, it's like all of that 60% I was feeling like it all lifted. And it's like
Right.
just being out of Florida, I was like, this is different. And I still had my shit and I still been
Right.
dealing with it. But like,
But it's
yeah,
less
it was wild. And then
and
this
it's
this
yours, not someone else's.
yes. And so this past 3 months, um, well, however long it's been, 2.5 months, has literally been like this rebirth, this phoenix in the ashes, this like processing and purging, and really coming out of the like, who the hell am I? What do I want? Like, I've been spending my last X amount of time overwhelmed, anxious, overthinking, trying to build a business a certain way and all these things. And I'm like, obviously, my way hasn't been working. So like, what if I did it a different way? Like, I'm not really going to change. It's not like I'm going from like, being an Akashic record reader to like, you know, uh, pressure washing, you know, driveways, right?
Right.
Like, but just how I interact and the way that I beat myself up or don't beat myself up or the expectations and the how do I make
Right.
oh my god, oh my god, it's almost like I created my own hurricane.
Well, we
Like,
do. We do. However, when you were talking about the steering wheel of the circle, one of the analogies I use frequently is the law of polarity.
mhm,
You can't love unless you also can hate. The
mhm,
two, right? And if we
mhm,
take the lineal law of polarity and connect them because they're the same energy, right? We see that it's circular. If we take the circle and twist it once, we make the infinity sign. And
mhm,
that's the cycle of getting into the middle, getting into balance, go, yeah, this is where I want to be. Wait a minute, I'm getting out of it again.
mhm,
And like, oh, here it comes, here it goes. Okay, I'm in it again. Because we're on this infinity journey
mhm,
of the ebbs and flows. And for me, it's like, I mean, the lesson I learned last year was I can be in the middle of some pretty heavy shit and still love myself and still show up
mhm.
as much as I can and give myself permission to rest, relax, and not feel guilty about it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so I think it's for me, permissions is a big thing this past year. Um, I have to give people permission to get into my circle. So I'll share a story with you.
Mhm,
So I did one of the many things I did while I was going through that process is I worked with a body talk woman. She's amazing, amazing body talk. She asked my body what it needs, and that's what we get. Who knows what it's. And we first session, she's like, your heart is too open. So the energy that you are emitting to the world, you need some of that for yourself right now. So we're going to close it up a little bit. I'm like, okay. So we go through months of whatever. At the end of radiation, which was another phase, very lots of scarring went on there. And I worked with the sound man. He goes, I want to take your radiation away.
mhm,
Okay. And by the way, he did. And we sit down. He goes, you are receiving love because believe me, I did. You're open. He goes, but you're not letting much out. I went, oh, I closed it up. We have to open it up. So if you don't think this
mhm,
stuff is real, how come that kind of thing
mhm,
happens? Right. Right. And so
mhm.
we opened it up again. And by the way, the very next day, it was almost like, when your sunburn falls off, you peel completely scarring gone,
Mhm. Yeah,
completely
yeah,
gone. Right.
yeah.
So it's that whole energy. And that just reinforced for me that my job from this body and this life experience is to untangle and straighten out the strands of energy around me so that the flow is as free of resistance as possible. And that's what we call good and bad. And I say
Mhm,
we call it because these are just experiences that we chose to have.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah,
Right. Right.
yep.
So,
With the good and bad, like for example, like I do a lot, and I'm sure you do too, with like intuition and higher self.
mhm,
And so if you're tuned into your intuition, higher self, and you're like, hey, what's my next best step? Okay, cool, take this job, do this thing, whatever, right? And then that turns out bad. It's like, but my higher self, duh. Well, yeah, maybe that being in that bad situation was to help teach you an aspect of, like you said, the law of polarity to teach you this experience, to
right.
teach you something there, to help unwind the energy or to help you have more centeredness and groundedness to prepare you for the next thing that maybe you don't even know is coming.
Well, what's really interesting, this is my belief. This is belief. you know, I'll be proven that it's true for sure, but right now it's just a belief that, okay, so our spirits, our soul, our energy, consciousness chose this life. Why? Because we want to experience. Why? Because that's a different energy frequency than pure love. And we come from pure love, which can get bored after a while. And so to get unboard, you have to create chaos. I did that as a manager. When I noticed my staff getting too comfortable, and that I would change the workflow, I would change teams, I would change something up on a pretty regular basis to wake them up. And so we're here to expand and wake up the universe with our experiences. So when I remember that, I get less impacted by what we call negative situations.
Yeah, it's all perspective. It's how we, of course, it's all perspective. It's how we react to it. And sometimes we're so entangled in it that we might consciously, logically understand. I guarantee there are people
We've
who are
got to
going to
feel the
watch
feel.
this.
Feel
Yeah,
the
I'm
feels.
guaranteed that people are going to watch this to be like, yeah, I know. You want to be disentangled. I want to be all those things, but like sometimes it is what it is, and you in it. You in the storm. You can't hurry up the hurricane. Hurricane's gonna happen. It's gonna take the time it takes. It's gonna go.
So I was thinking of some of the clients I've worked with in the past. And a couple of them, I'm going to try to make this as vague as possible so that they don't identify with it, even though I don't say their name. They're in the shit all the time. They feed off of this. They create this. And I was thinking about, okay, so we're here for experiences. Their soul, how brave was their soul to say, okay, we want that much energy. I got it. Send me down. I got it. I'm going to do that one. I will live day in and day out feeling like that so that we can send that energy up. Thank you.
It's a combination of all the things, because I also am having this vision where there are some who are choosing the chaos over and over, right? And so, well, yes, it could be a lesson. Like all these things are true, but like I'm just seeing this whole vision of like, you know, this is where it's time, regardless of which situation, to go internal and to really ask, is this the hurricane? And the hurricane takes time, and it's just, it's a 2-day hurricane, it's 1 day, like, is it the hurricane's passing through, so am I just in the hurricane,
right?
Or
am I the hurricane?
Or am I or is it sunny outside, but I am literally continuing to choose the hurricane over and over and over and over again, which reminds me of the crisis stabilization. Part of that is to help the people choose, like realize we're out of the hurricane, but not to dismiss it. The hurricane was still a part of it, but like it's sunny outside. So how can we move forward? How can we not forget?
It happened. It was in the past. One of my clients, I had a conversation with her last week, and this came as a download. I told her, I want you to ask your guides to take out the Windex and clean the windows of her aura, of her energy sphere. I said, there's light trying to come in, but it's not coming in. Right. So it'll be interesting to see how she's been cleaning her windows. And that night I'm like, you know what? I think I could do some house cleaning too. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because we all have, we all gather the dust, if you will. We all gather the dirt, and it all gets gummy sometimes, and we have to clean. And I think that for me, the chaos is cleaning house. It's when I haven't been paying attention, and the universe says, well, it's time for you to clean house, and you've not listened to us. So here you go.
Sometimes we don't want to see it. We avoid it to the last minute until you have no other choice but to do it anyway.
Right. So Jeni, you and I can relate so much, because I was very successful in corporate, and And when I became an entrepreneur, I was sure I had this thing sewn up, right? And for years, I did have it sewn up. I was, I wouldn't say was never a problem. There was a lot that I did that didn't work, that failed, that I,
Mhm.
right? But I just went and did the next thing and just went and did it. And it was no problem. It just never seemed to be a problem. Right. And so, and this is the year again that I'm like, well, I know I can do it. I've done it. I don't want to do it though the way that I did it before because that doesn't feel right.
Mhm.
Right. And so just let and the it is to pay the bills. The it is to serve. Right. It's not just to pay the bills, but to serve as many people as I can. Right. So how do I reframe my energy flow, right, in order to show up the best way I can today? Never mind how I
Mhm.
showed up yesterday. Right. And that is every once in a while I'll put down a note. And then when I go back, I'm like, yeah, no, that's not it.
Yep.
Right.
Sometimes that's part of it too.
Right. Right. Yes. So that's part of it too. And there are programs that I've created, co-created, that are on the shelf. One, the gentleman that I'm co-creating with. So here's the story I'll share with you. This beautiful man. His story is he fought stage 4 cancer twice. Um, was supposed to die. So he's a miracle man, and has spent years on the circuit talking about resilience. And he reached
Mhm.
out to me wanting to collaborate because I'm tired of being the cancer boy. I said, good, it's about time, right? I think it's you played that one out. And he said, well, let's work together on a leadership program. We got the program ready. We have user guides. We have the outline. We're ready to go. Literally that Friday, we were ready to go. Okay, how are we going to promote this? He was in the hospital by Sunday. He has leukemia. He
Mhm.
is stage 4, waiting for a bone marrow transplant, and it's not looking good.
Mhm.
Third time. And so I said to the universe, why? And then he called because we still chat when he has the energy. And he goes, Gail, this is the one thing I'm hanging on to. I went, oh, that's why.
Mhm.
It's the one
Mhm.
thing that he's hanging on to. And he said, Gail, you can go forward with this without me. I'm like, no,
Mhm.
I'll wait for you,
Mhm.
to come, but you're not going to go on the cancer circuit. And here is that whole, what you think of, you create. He saw himself as the cancer man, and he was about ready to step into a healthier lifestyle. And what happened?
Mhm. Yeah.
Right. And so that was something that I never identified with. I never identified with my illness. I always saw myself as, being perfectly healthy, that some lab had some diagnosis thing, but that's their problem.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. That was never, you never use the I am on something
Mhm.
like that. Right.
Yeah.
Very, very careful. And so moving forward, I'm happy that you're not out of it here yet. And here's why.
Mhm.
Um, you're out of it enough that you can be raw and real enough to talk about it,
Mhm.
because it's not just entrepreneurs. It really is anyone who believes that they're where they're supposed to be. Right. The mindset that has been in the back of my mind that I'm like bringing it forward going, well, that doesn't look right, is, well, the spiritual community, they're not supposed to make a lot of money anyway. Right. No, there are plenty in the spiritual community who are making a shitload of money. Right. And they're impacting so many lives.
And how do you impact more people if you're broke? Now, I
Right.
understand that in the spiritual community, there's a lot of talk that the current systems are not the best and we need to move into a new earth system where there's a lot more like collaboration and giving.
And that's
There's
happening. But in the meantime, the credit card
there,
bill's coming in.
yeah, like how else, if you can't help yourself, how can you help other people? I mean, if you're
Mhm.
constantly out there giving, but like you're struggling, do you really have the largest, Master Co was just talking about this, like the largest chakra system to be able to hold space for more. How big is your prosperity center? How big are these energy systems within our chakras that allow us to make a bigger impact? Okay, you want
Right.
to open a retreat center. Okay, you want to start a whatever. Right now, you need money to do that. So until we are at a new earth where you don't need money to open up a center, and I'm game with finding other solutions and other ways. Like there's a million ways to do it,
Right.
and it's like understanding the certain systems. So I agree. Like when I was in Sarasota, I definitely could feel the lack consciousness within the spiritual community in that local market.
Right.
And of course, it's not the entire market, but I could feel it. And there was this like same type of thing. And my thing was like, okay, so I happen to do Akashic records, or I'm an intuitive, or whatever it is that I do, energy healing or whatever. I'm not allowed to charge for it, right? Or whatever in that model. But like if I were a peak performance expert or whatever, I'm going to charge for my services. So how is that not a spiritual service to help people with peak performance and make their life better? Like, why
Right.
does that person get to charge and I don't?
Well,
Like,
that's the
it
ridiculousness
doesn't make
of the
sense.
whole
It
thing,
doesn't make
right?
sense. And
Yep.
plus, I bring all this other experience. And so, my life path is not to be the Buddha and allow gifts to come to me and to be supported. There are spiritual people where that is their path, where they don't charge
Right.
because they've been put in that to be able to hold. And perhaps maybe they came in and they have a bigger energetic capacity to hold that so that they're taken care of. But still, some of these gurus still have online businesses. And even though they may be nonprofits, there's still money flowing through the online business that then is helping support more people, more programs, supporting their travel, supporting their ability to go all over the world
Right.
and to
So
touch people.
my spiritual guide, he was my January 1st interview this year. He is like Abraham Hicks,
Mm-hmm.
and he has a food supplement business,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which, by the way, I used last year during my journey. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so that is how he is able to dive headfirst, deep, 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 and travel around the world and give the way that he does. And yes, he charges clients if you want to be part of his community. Yes, you pay for it, but he couldn't create that until he first created the foundation,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is feeding into that helps him grease the wheel. Is it grease the wheel? What is it when you pump, grease the pump, right? Prime the pump,
Yes, I like that.
right? Prime the pump, right? You got to keep pumping until the water starts to flow, and then once it flows with ease and grace. And so this journey that you're on, this coming out of the chaos, um, what do you see or feel about the I call it alchemization. I don't call it transformation anymore. The alchemization that is going on. It's more than a transformation.
Mhm.
It's alchemizing into something different.
Yeah, so the stage that I'm in now, it's as if, so part of why I came to Texas was multiple reasons to help out my husband's family, and then as well as kind of just the financial situation and being, I don't know, we need a place to park for the holidays because don't know what we're going to do next. And so when we came here, the intention was to still continue as nomads, just needed a
Mm.
little bit of a break. Um, what has happened with the like releasing, I've had some huge emotional clearing since I've been here, like a physical purge of energy had happened. um I wasn't expecting that, so it was like, oh my gosh, like I'm releasing. And so now in this space, the alchemization and like the space I feel like I'm in is this whole big shift in the way that I see myself, the way I do life. And so another thing my husband and I both said, we will never live in Houston again. We're done with Houston. Well, we signed a 12-month lease in Houston for the next 12 months and perhaps longer, depending on how life goes, as a place to really ground and rebuild, with financially and everything. And it's almost like the thing we didn't know that we needed to be plugged into family and support system and different stuff. So as that's unfolding, I'm supposed to be moving into our new place here within the next week or so, and starting over. And it's a different feeling. And in the starting over space, I feel like it's the alchemization of what was, what is, and what could be.
Right.
And in the what is space, when you said it's very beautiful, you're in the space. I feel like the space I'm in now is this space of like, well, a lot of the things I believed before aren't true. Don't really know what to believe moving forward. Who am I? What do I want to do in my business? Like, there's a lot of the destabilization questions, but I'm not looking at them as destabilization. And if I find myself destabilized by some of these questions, I've been able to notice the energy of that frantic energy, trying to figure it out and land it and be like, hold on, wait. Because I feel like what I'm being asked to do, this is just what I feel, is to be patient and hold the space and allow myself to create from this powerful place that I'm in, this like alchemizing, this phoenix rising from the ashes, this rebirth. Allow myself to create from this space and not chase the short term comfort of the stability. Like, we've got the things in place that provide the stability to cover what we need to cover.
The illusion.
Yeah, it's not where I would love to have it. And so I can tell, like, I start to chase that, like, oh my God, I got to figure it out. I'm like, okay, no, my job is to hold a container to be able to allow it to unfold and allow myself space to breathe. Like, one of my intentions, terms, words, whatever you want to put on it, like, one of the things that I really want to practice this year is simplicity. How can I simplify, from the overthinking, from the anxiety, from the overwhelm? How can I simplify? And with that simplification, I don't need to go rush out and get a sales job again. It would feel good because now I'd be making six figures and they would pay off the debt and whatever, but like, I'm still going to face these things. So it's like this beautiful space. And I say that because I'm more grounded now in it. It's a beautiful space of like, man, anything and everything is possible this year. So if I can continue to allow myself, continue to show up, allow myself to receive, allow myself to be present to what is, and to release whatever I thought it would be or could be. I'm still working on some of the shame around the money part and the like, oh, you're 40. I mean, that stuff still comes up. Some of the shame pieces. Really like to destigmatize some of that. I don't think it's my journey to destigmatize it for the world, but like, it is what it is. Like, we all go through shit, like we all go through shit.
Well, I'll tell you, Jen, I now work with clients and do not project or pretend to believe that I understand what they've gone through. If I don't have an experience to share, then I don't have a right to say much of anything about what they're going through. Even if I have gone through their experience, the only thing I can bring to the table is that I can relate to where they're at, therefore maybe hold space a little bit broader, right? But it's not my job to tell you you're broken, to tell you I'm going to fix you, to hold you up, to do any of that stuff. My job is to be your mirror and hold your hand because you're afraid to look in the mirror. That's about it. Yeah.
Simple.
No.
Well, it's simple. Like, the way you do it, it's simple. Not the work is simple, but like, it's really that simple. My job is to hold your hand,
right,
and help you look in the mirror when you can't.
Right.
It's simple.
Right. And I even have a meditation where so I'll be really brief so that we can wrap this up, where I bring people down actually 3 levels. So we go very deep, and 2 of their assistants come so that they're safe. So deep and safe, and in their own workshop that they create. And they stand in front of a mirror, and all of the toxins that are in their body, we talk about them oozing out of their body as though it was tar. And the body becomes like a tar baby suit. And when we're done purging, your assistants unzip you, peel it back, and you step out of it and now look in the mirror and talk about, what do you see now? That's your essence. That's who you really, really are. And then together we have a little journey. We go out in the backyard and we burn the tar baby suit. Right. But that, that's just symbolic of what it is that we do every single day, because there's always a piece of tar still coming out.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. There's
Yep.
always more to come out. So, Jeni, if someone wants to get in touch with you and work with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, I'd say the best way, I mean, if you listen to the end, you obviously are vibing with this conversation. And so if you want to explore more in the world, Jeni Holla, JeniHolla.com, and you'll see all the different ways that I'm offering different entry points to work with me, and just follow your soul and see what you're guided and led to. Because like Gail said, like, I can't tell you the next step. I can be a mirror, and I can invite you to take that next step and hold space for you. You have to choose. You have to decide.
And it's a beautiful thing when you do. So thank you, everybody, for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. If this interests you, give us a thumbs up. If you have a question, put it in the comments. We'll be happy. There you go. Put the questions in. We'll be happy to get back to you. If you know someone who could benefit from this conversation, please do share it out to them. And as always, subscribe so you know when we have the next episode. Bye-bye. If I can get this thing to shut off, we'll be happy.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.